The Things We Eat in Summer. Song Ji-hyun. When Auntie called and said she was going on a trip to Europe next month, I was lying in my bed at the human Goshiwon. I was lucky enough to have a window in my crammed little unit, and I could see the mango part of human Goshiwon printed out on it in reverse. I was only at a Goshiwon because my rent had expired and I needed some place to stay before I found a new place, but the word Goshiwon had a real impact on my life. Friends and acquaintances kept treating me to food or drinks. On those days, I would tiptoe back into the Goshiwon halls at dawn, breathing a sigh of relief and knowing this was only temporary. On those days, I wanted to grab anyone I saw and ask, "What do you think? This is just a temporary arrangement for all of us here, right, fellow human?" It made me a little sad, though, that about the only places I could afford weren't much better than human Goshiwon. So one day, I just lounged around on my bed, staring at the back of the mango on my window. Not mango, but man-go, of all things. The window must have been unimaginably thin, because the AC had no effect. I do want to go somewhere out of here, but where is here even? The Goshiwon? Seoul? That was when Auntie phoned me and said with no lead-up, "Honey, I want you to look after the shop while I'm gone." "How do you expect me to look after it?" I replied. "Just open and close the shutters every day at the right times." "What if people ask me how to knit and stuff?" "They're all old hands. You can leave 'em alone to knit and chat." "I'll think about it." Thinking about it on my own just gave me a headache, so I gave my old high school classmate B a call. He lived a little far away, so I waited alone at the pub for a while. The food wasn't great, and neither was the interior, but the chilled mugs they used kept me coming back. I was munching on cuttlefish with beer when B finally showed up in a suit. The first thing he did was give me a scolding for the cuttlefish. "Do you even think about the markup?" "Yeah, but it's not like I'd eat it at home." B thought about it intently before replying, "That's true." Ironically, B ended up getting an order of assorted fritters. That's a decent choice too, I thought, munching on my cuttlefish slice. Now that I think about it, how do people decide between all these decent choices? Making a choice means something gets chosen. Right now, even the side dishes for beer are getting chosen, while I'm still sitting here waiting to be picked, just like my cuttlefish. People choose fritters and jjigae because they're cost-efficient and mainstream, but the only people who order cuttlefish are the ones who don't think about how much cheaper it is to buy at the store. So the cuttlefish is the story of my life, huh? That was when B asked, "So what's the occasion, calling on a weekday?" Nothing much." "Be honest, you didn't even know it was a weekday." "Yeah, basically." He gave me a sidelong look and said, "Shit, forgot to order beer." I raised my voice through the din to place his order, then turned to ask, "So what's the occasion, coming out in a suit on a weekday?" "Job interview." "What?" "This guy I know said there's a job opening for a designer at his office." "What about that stuff you were doing?" "I can always go back to that later." "Damn it, stop trying to act cool and serious like that." We had a good laugh and raised a toast for luck, but part of me wanted him to fail so he could keep going with his old project. I tried to drink away those feelings so B wouldn't know, and before I knew it, I was drunk as ever, being held back by B as I tried to dance in front of a nearby taffy stand. Then there was nothing. So was my favorite conjunction. Somehow it seemed to make every sentence make sense. Even when listening to a boring conversation, just saying "so" and rewording what the other person said would make you look engaged. And that was why B knew that any time I used that tactic, I'd lost interest in whatever he was saying. He knew too many of my embarrassing secrets. "Which is why you have to die for my honor," I joked once. More than once, actually, although I didn't resent him in the slightest. There were other people I did want to kill. I dreamed often about killing someone and ruining my life. In my nightmares, I always made small, stupid mistakes that killed people, There wasn't any resentment or hate. And because I didn't want to ruin my life over something so small, I would always hide the body. But the truth would eventually come to light. Then I would wake up and let the relief crash over my body, knowing my life wasn't ruined after all. Then again, was it really not ruined? Anyway. So I went back to my hometown to move out of the human goshiwan and get an early start learning about running Auntie's knitting shop. The knitting shop was a tiny space in a long alleyway in the traditional market. To the left was the original oxhead gukbap, and to the right was the classic duvet store. The gukbap place had good food, and the duvet place had tacky blankets. The bad thing about the gukbap place was that they had a pig's head in a basin at the entrance. Even setting aside the ridiculousness, a pig's head at an oxhead gukbap restaurant? The vague half-smile on the dead pig didn't exactly whet the appetite. But one spoonful of the gukbap brought the appetite right back, and by that point the pig's head didn't matter so much. The duvet shop's